Loving what you're watching? Don't miss a moment of Einstein's disease or any of your other favorite Now Media TV shows, live or on demand, anytime, anywhere. Download the free Now Media TV app on Roku or iOS and enjoy instant access to our full lineup of bilingual programming in both English and Spanish. Prefer to listen on the go? Catch the podcast version of the show right on the Now Media TV website at nowmedia.tv. From business and breaking news to lifestyle, culture, and everything in between, Now Media TV is streaming 24/7, ready whenever you are. Welcome back to Einstein's disease, where we provide tools to help you maximize your future by exploring new processes for saying yes and no instead of assuming you already know. I'm joined today with my co-host, Greg Ellers, and also Kimberly Dymond, CEO and founder of K Dymond Consulting. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kenzie. And Kim, welcome back to the second segment. Really appreciate you framing the problems and challenges both employers and candidates for jobs are facing today in the workforce. We'd really like to get some insight on a couple of solutions to help both sides. Kim, you've had a lot of experience and there's a lot of things that are continuing to change. We talked about some of that off camera, but one of the key areas is the basic steps, Kim, solutions for hiring smarter, not harder. And if you can dive into that with the point of clarity and expectations, setting them. I found, or I believe that we have found in our company, if we lay things out initially to the candidate or to the hiring manager, we get a little bit better clarity and people are comparing the old adage apples to apples versus apples to oranges. So you could kind of share with us what your solutions and your advice that you either provide to the hiring manager or you know are helpful would be a great place to start in this segment. And we really are happy to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Well, like you mentioned, setting processes in place and having the entire team involved in the process, not just a recruiter starting a process and they need to do what we call in the industry, some people call it an intake call or a job initiative. So you sit down and you get all of the information. You talk about the job, just the role and the responsibilities. You go over that. You make sure that everyone's on the same page with what that job description says, because sometimes that will happen. A manager will get a description that was posted by the HR team or the recruiting team, and they're not, there's differences. Okay, so want to get on the same page with the job description, the expectations outside of the job description, the career path. These are all things that you can ask in an intake call with the hiring manager and the team, preferably. So if there's other individuals involved in the process, they should be able to hear and or receive the information after the fact so they can see what was said and what the thoughts are behind it. You gather salary expectations. You talk about the people they're going to work with, what the demographics are, dynamics are, the customers are going to be working with. You want to learn all those things so that when you talk to the candidate in the recruiting space, you have a lot of great information you can share with them, and they can in turn digest that and understand what questions they need to ask going forward. And then when they get into the interview process, everybody is on the same page. If you create that process, then you will save yourself a lot of frustration on both sides, whether it's from the manager or the candidate. So having a streamlined process from recruiting to onboarding, okay? It doesn't just stop once you get a person, get them the offer. There's the next steps that go with that, and some people tend to, it kind of tends to fall into the cracks, and you don't want that to happen either, because then that all of a sudden reflects also, your company with the candidate. So there's a little bit beyond this process that we're talking about, but the key is the structure and having that everyone in alignment and sharing it with the individual. That will lessen that frustration.
No, and so one thing there that I think that is important to share is when you have a client that doesn't have this structure, or they've gone through the process and they haven't been able to find the fit, or you've given them an A candidate, but they haven't interviewed right and they've missed the mark, or you believe they've missed the mark. Talk to us a little bit about how you address that with your clients or candidate on both sides, Kim, because that's the difficult conversation that's given you so much success, right? You've been able to help people alter their behavior or their practices to grow their business correctly. But that sometimes can be a difficult conversation.
Yes. So I think what you're referencing is if you feel like everything was in alignment and a candidate it didn't align, right? They came in and they're like, what happened there? So then you want to have revisit and say, well, let me make sure I understand what changed. Did anything change? Did something change within the organization? Did something change within the role so that I can understand where we missed the mark? A lot of times, in my opinion, you generally are capable or all capable of getting the majority of the skills that are required. It's usually the interaction, which in turn is the personalities and that alignment. So sometimes you have to learn that through a little bit through the process. They get to know themselves as a manager and what they're looking for. And then they in turn help share with me, the type of person, that they feel that will fit better in this role. So it's a collaboration. You have to speak to each other. The feedback of not a fit doesn't work. Why not a fit? You need specifics in both sides, and you need to be able to share that information with a candidate. How do you call a candidate and say, hey, you're just not a fit? What does that mean to the candidate, right? Your hair was the wrong color, or like, what does it mean? So those communication is key right now. The lack of it is what's caused so much frustration in the workforce right now. The ghosting, the non-communication, the people just not wanting to say too much or too little. It's very we're struggling there to keep that communication
People are
accurate.
afraid, unlike me, I guess, Kenzie, to actually say what they want to say, and that affects the culture, I think, at the end, which is something I would be great for because of the age differences and the generations of businesses that you deal with, especially on some of these up and coming businesses and logistics and so forth. There's a cultural element, and without the communication, you really don't find out about that culture without the proper communication. I think is probably another area that would be great to get a little bit of insight and advice. You're trying to build a culture, and it's a young, fast moving company, and they're trying to hire people, but does that necessarily mean they're hiring people that understand that culture? Does that become a problem as well?
I'm sorry,
With
you kind of
respect
cut out.
to then you have too high a turnover, if people don't understand the cultural fit.
I think we're seeing a little bit more of that now because people have options, and so when they get into the environment and it's not a fit. So as a recruiter, when I'm talking to individuals who are employed and we're talking about them making a transition to a new opportunity, I always ask them, what about your current position? Is it making you happy? And a lot of it you will hear is that we don't think along the same line, okay, or they've shifted their direction, and that's not in alignment with me. So that's now granted, that's sometimes, probably not accurate, but that's what I hear. So then I try to dig and say, well, did they change managers, or did, what happened there that you feel that you're not in alignment with the organization? Try to find that out to see if it's truthful or if it's just something they're using as a reason. But I do hear that. And like I said, the world has changed ever since COVID. Everybody's had different opportunities to work in different environments. So the cultural piece, in my opinion, has become more prevalent than it did before. Before it was more about security, stability, money, which not that it's still not about money, but now it's more about how does it make me feel? I hate to say that.
Yeah. How do you feel about that, Kenzie? I mean, you're in a different stage of your career. All of the people you graduated from Michigan State with, and your close friends. How do you feel, or what kind of conversations do you have about this whole hiring process that some of your friends have talked about? Because maybe Kim's advice could give them a little bit of a leg up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Kim really hit the nail on the head of my personal shared experiences that I've heard and seen, that people are really picky. I mean, at this day and age, people aren't going to take a job that they don't think that they'd be happy in, that they wouldn't like going to every day. And again, to Kim's point, I wasn't in any sort of workforce for real before COVID. I was only 20 when COVID started, but COVID made a lot of people realize, like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to go to a job that I don't like going to, when I can go to this job that the culture matches who I am, and I'm surrounded by people with similar personalities or values, or just a better fit. And so I definitely agree with Kim, especially from seeing firsthand the younger, coming straight out of college age workforce, is that they are really prioritizing that work-life balance.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, this has been an insightful walk, Kim. Really appreciate some of the actionable solutions you have on the hiring side. Be great for you to stay with us, so we can get out to our millions of viewers, share our advertising. We'll be back shortly. Thank you very much.